Hello, hello, and welcome to Hello, I am Mayor Watt. That is ohmTown.com, and up there is the AI that keeps everybody in check. You want to say hello, oh great AI?
Good evening, ohmTown citizens.
Tonight's episode is Season 2, Episode 194 for July 13th, 2023. Your bra is hissing.
Excuse me?
So, well, I've done this in the past, and then I've stopped, and then I've done it again, and then I kind of let it pass. But I'm going to do a rundown of the titles for the segment real quick. We're going to have I'm just going to go through it really quick. Not Sioux Land, according to an author. Taylor Swift tour catches attention. Enthralled by Enshrouded. UK Actors Union Equity, Readies strike. Ice cream for Indigenous land. Dinosaur Park bone bed. Canadian West Coast port strike is over. TikTok plastic dock. Your bra is hissing. Breakfast gets cheaper. San Francisco property implosion and Egyptian art edits. 12 articles. We're going to go through it really fast. There's a couple of soapboxing segments, though. That's why I'm going to speed up a little bit. And I'm going to just remind everybody that although we do try to put the article links into the chat, the VOD, Twitch really doesn't do us a favor in the VOD sense, because the VODs disappear every 60 days. The last one drops off. So although I think it's great, I love that it's a feature. I basically do the work and then it gets kicked off after 60 days. And so we port it over to YouTube for long-term storage and that community, which might be partly Twitch community as well. And then it goes over to podcast form as well. And along the way, there is show notes, and those show notes contain the URLs that we post into the chat. So if I miss something, I apologize, but you can always go here, which is ohmtown.com/elections. And to get that URL, you can just type in !vote, and that will pop up the election. I might change it to !election. I don't know. Maybe both. Hell, oh, you know what? We have the entire power of the internet. I think I could make that happen. And if you want to do older elections, because we do retain these, we switched from another provider, and so unfortunately we don't have anything older than May 20th. Basically, I nixed all of those from an external source. And brought them all in-house as much as I could. We just pivoted. So anyway, that's all inside baseball. If it doesn't matter to you, then obviously you don't have to vote. But the elections are there so that we know if you are interested in a particular article. That would be great to vote. And this just went up, so feel free to go over there and vote to your heart's content. Hello, Crazy Cat Lady. Welcome to the show. We're just getting started. So these two links here are nothing more than the election article kind of discussion. So let's get into the very first article for today. You ready to go, AI?
I am.
Okay. So the very first article is actually a post tweet article response kind of a thing. Sorry for the dead air. I'm trying to explain what this is. But so later on, about halfway through the show, there's going to be the original post that triggered this response from somebody. But I wanted to talk about it immediately because this is the more current situation. And so I'm going to get in front of this and we're going to talk about it because context is king in ohmTown. And there's a lot of context that's lacking from, I think, both perspectives. And we can't rely on cultural relativism of both of those without understanding just what it means. So, not Sioux land, understanding the fallacies behind Ben & Jerry's stolen ground tweet. Good evening, Tull. Welcome. Oh, really? There's something happening with the voting. Okay, I'll take a look at it. Sorry about that. Okay, but I can't do it right now. Sorry. So the article here is over at The Hill. It's an author who actually has a book that's coming out on this topic. And I thought that it was a really weird timing confluence kind of a thing. And I don't know, it's kind of weird, right? That a book is suddenly available for a topic that's only born from a tweet that just happened to come into existence. Because at the end of this article, I had to look into this because it was submitted. And while I get submissions periodically, this one was really involved because it really does speak to me because it's involving business, technology, and society. The trifecta of what I'm really focused on, both professionally and as the mayor of ohmTown. I'm very interested in this like triad of topics. So what ended up happening was a tweet by Ben & Jerry's public relations division made headlines by tweeting that it's high time we recognize that the U.S. exists on stolen indigenous land and commit to returning it. That was the original statement. And then this author makes an opinion piece and posts it on The Hill. So let's go straight over to The Hill. Jeff Finn Paul is an opinion contributor who posted this via thehill.com. So they put their caveat that it's the contributor's view and not the Hill's. But it says on July 4th, Ben & Jerry's public relations division made this headline or tweet, and it's made headlines. And there's some discussion about it being the next like Bud Light situation where everybody starts blacklisting Ben & Jerry's and whatnot. And so the article talks about it in much deeper terms than I can give it enough time. But let me summarize. They basically say that the indigenous land that would be given to these people, right? Whatever you... the way that they're describing it is that it's supposed to go to the Sioux, except that the historical context of the Lakota Sioux in that region wasn't their native original Aboriginal land. They were actually driven west by other tribes and other, for lack of a better term, Indians, right? Because culturally, the historical context of it is that's what the people were reduced to, the calling them Indians, because I don't know, humans, while very creative, lack the ability to understand the context that they weren't Indian when they were there, and they're not Indian now. They're just Aboriginal people, original people of the land. But we ended up calling them, Indians. Anyway, the author talks about this historical context, and I understand that context, right? But to sit there and say, well, they weren't the original people, and there were other people there, and then they went over, and they sided with, and this is all part of this article, the Sioux sided with the Confederates and had slaves, and so on and so forth, right? They talk about this context that, well, originally they weren't there anyway, so it's not theirs. The Ojibwe is the original people. And we're pushing the Sioux further back, west. Okay. And eventually what happened was, a lawsuit formed around the Lakota Sioux being taken from, the Mount Rushmore being taken from that land, being taken from the Lakota Sioux. But the Supreme Court gave $105 million for the claim to the Black Hills, but it's apparently never been touched and is supposedly worth somewhere around $2 billion. That's what this person. So what ended up at the end of this article, right? This professor of economic history at Leiden University in the Netherlands touts the book, Not Stolen: The Truth About European Colonialism in the New World. Fascinating that it's on pre-order on Amazon, right? I mean, lots of people on the planet, but there's a book that's ready to print for pre-order just in time for this person to capitalize on it via. And so I was sitting there going, that's some hella good marketing, right? Like, somebody tweets something that is basically open mouth, insert foot. But here's the thing, we're going to end up talking about this later on. So keep this article in mind, everybody, because this isn't the end of the story. It's certainly not the beginning of the story. And both of them are on the extreme ends. One completely ignoring the fact that, yes, indeed, land had traded hands, and not necessarily on the even footing of a meeting of the minds and the contractual basis of today's understanding of what a contract is and what the sale of land is and who actually owns it and the provenance therein, right? So it's a little bit more complicated, but we know that whatever took place in history since the Europeans came to the New World, we're talking about 250 years ago, and a whole lot of evolutionary changes in economy, in world, in the power structure of the world, the value of the land, the kind of the balkanization of the regions. And one thing holds true: when a plurality of people are all working together, even if some of the population is saying that they're not represented well enough or they're being marginalized, and really I'm not trying to get into like the political aspects. I'm talking about the sociological forces. There's a lot of, well, I don't believe this or that didn't happen, but understand something. The North American land from Canada all the way down to Mexico was in some way acquired either by force or economic efforts. Right? Something was traded, something was given, money or integration into the culture or the state or protection or whatever. It's a multitude of things that have transpired that has enabled North America to be the United States. And because it is the United States, it had a unified effort moving forward, even if you discount or even if you believe in the concept of manifest destiny. You know, from sea to shining sea was the statement, right, that everybody was living by at the time, right? There was all kinds of motivation around it. This was our land, that kind of a thing, right? But that's cultural relativism. Not everybody believes in that anymore because we have a more global understanding that we're all humans and together we're better than balkanized fighting tribes. And there is plenty of evidence of that around the world, right? So remember this article, that summary, and then that little tidbit there, okay? Because we're going to get back into it, but it's going to take a little while. I want you to cogitate on it, and then we'll come back to it here in a little bit. So I know the AI may have wanted to talk about that last article, but what I want even the AI to do is to cogitate. Think about what that article was saying. If you have to go over and look at it, then feel free. But we're going to keep on trucking through the news. And this one was really interesting because we've been talking about Taylor Swift and its economic impact on states. Even yesterday, I absolutely made the comment that it's a juggernaut of an ecosystem revolving, or an economic system revolving around one person. Oh, and Crazy Cat Lady said that it's not the first time Ben and Jerry has opened their mouth and then had to insert their foot. No, you're right. They're political activists with a corporate, I guess, ribbon going through their ice cream kind of a thing. But we'll end up talking about that because their article, their original post, and the uproar from it is what's later on in the stream. But here we're talking about Taylor Swift's impact on the economy has caught the eye of the Fed. It's an economic juggernaut, and it's hopping from state to state, literally impacting the economics of the state because a governor sits there and writes, "Oh, thank you, Taylor Swift, for coming to our state," the great state of Colorado, for instance, right?
Well, that doesn't sound so crazy when you see how much revenue is coming into the States.
Yeah. The stunning success of Taylor Swift's Eras tour. Again, oh, by the way, we actually spun up a TikTok, and it's one of those articles is over there. So if you go to tiktok.com/ well, you have to do the @ symbol, ohmTown. It'll pull up the 4. We do at least 2 articles each day from the previous night. And the Taylor Swift one is yesterday's. Somewhere around 1.8 billion, I think, is the total value of the
Yes.
but the
we
hype.
looked up different countries' GDPs, remember? And
Right.
and Barbuda was one of them. There were others that were in the same range. But
Right. Taylor Swift is literally an island unto itself. A $1.8 billion island. Isn't that amazing? I just think it's really fascinating. But I'm also fascinated by the ecosystem around market makers like Apple. When Apple changes the camera location by 1/8 of an inch on their phone, everybody has to buy a brand new freaking case, and it generates billions of dollars in that ecosystem as well. And I can't say that others have that same impact in the singular sense, right? Like if one manufacturer changes their phone, all right, it's that model of phone and it changes a little bit, but there's a little bit more diaspora to the Apple offerings, but it used to be one flagship phone. And if it pivoted something in any way, a thickness by a 1/16 of an inch, you'd have to buy a whole new case, and it would just drive that economic engine again. Just spectacular. Disney's the same way. Anyway, don't get me wrong. I'm not hero worshiping. I'm fascinated by the processes that we as a society have made possible, that a corporation like Apple is too big to fail. And nobody would allow it to fail because they value the product so much. And that's how it is with Taylor Swift. If Taylor Swift were to drop a pair of shoes, they would be $10,000 shoes in the aftermarket because people love Taylor Swift so much. Toll says the Taylor Swift effect makes me, he wrote sick. She's not that good of an artist. People only fawn over her because social media tells them to, and generic people are stupid.
Tell us how you really feel.
Yeah, really. Yeah, that's dropping the bass on people there. Yeah, I don't listen to Taylor Swift's music. When I have, I'm like, okay, it's kind of popish, kind of, generic entertainment kind of a thing. It doesn't speak to me, but apparently it speaks to, $1.8 billion worth of people. And I honestly, I don't know. I mean, if you like the music, you like the music. The Eras tour, which consists of 131 concerts across 17 states and 5 continents, I didn't know that, has caught the attention of the Federal Reserve due to its noticeable impact on local economies. So Matthew Fox,
I can't think of that happening for any other concert tour, but
I don't know of any concert that had this much attention at the same time, but I think that there have been others. I'd have to go looking, but obviously not right now. So Matthew Fox over at Markets Insider, which is a subsection of businessinsider.com, put this article together. And it says, hotel revenues in the city surged to the highest level since the pandemic, thanks to Swift. The Federal Reserve highlighted the impact of Swift's 3 Philadelphia concerts in its most recent Beige Book, which is basically consolidation of economic facts, figures, data, things that are impacting the economy. The stunning success of Taylor Swift's Eras Tour has had a noticeable impact on the economy, local and across the board, because of so much money that's actually moving. Now, across the economy, I think is kind of because really it's just moving money that's already in people's hands. It's not generating anything new. It's just moving it, right? Kind of like energy. It doesn't get destroyed. It just changes form. And in this particular case, it's moving some money from a plurality of people, thousands or hundreds of thousands, according to the article, over to Taylor Swift's ecosystem, right? Or, I don't know. See, she doesn't come across as having an ego, so my joke about ecosystem would be a little bit flat. Yeah, and Crazy Cat Lady isn't into Taylor either. But I get it. I mean, when somebody becomes so popular in mainstream and the music isn't really, you're not really into that particular music, I can see it. It's pretty easy to get over somebody like that. So Swift performed in 3 concerts at Lincoln Financial Field on May 12th, 13th, and 14th, and she returned to Pennsylvania in mid-June to perform in Pittsburgh. Despite the slowing recovery in tourism and the region overall, one contact highlighted that May was the strongest month for hotel revenue in Philadelphia since the onset of the pandemic, in large part due to an influx of guests for the Taylor Swift concerts in the city. So absolutely crushing it for those 17 states and 5 continents, but I didn't know that they went to 5 continents. Obviously, I don't pay attention. Sorry, I'm just reading something. Tull says she may not have much of an outward ego, but to quote an artist that they enjoy listening to and nobody else has heard of, she's like a carnival flash on the outside, inside nothing but filth. That's some pretty rough verbiage there. So the totality of Taylor Swift's US tour, it says here in the article now, could generate $4.6 billion in total consumer spending, larger than the GDP of 35 countries, according to Common Sense Institute. And that's all there really is to this article. So let's keep on chugging through the news. Taylor Swift, the economic force. Kind of like a new phase of physics. You know, water, solid, gas, and Taylor Swift's economic engine.
I think we were ahead of our time with the comparison to the GDPs.
Yep, I think so too. We actually made a whole new discussion there, a whole area of discussion. Toll says that I asked how Toll feels about it, how they really feel about it. I mean, someone who will write numerous songs about their ex-boyfriends really says something about their character. She's not original and kind of person is just waiting to be immortalized with their breakup. Yeah, well, that's actually meme level. I guess she leans into it because it speaks to a whole lot of teen angst and maybe just angst in general. I don't know the demographic, but we will, at least in the show for now, we'll abandon Taylor Swift unless that that number increases 4.6. We had 1.8. It's pretty rough. So this next article is over on the Warcrafters channel. The base building system in this fantasy co-op survival RPG looks pretty incredible. I've actually talked about this once before. This is in Enshrouded, which is basically, to me, it's Valheim, but kicked up a notch, where everything in the build process is much more evolved. And it isn't necessarily, it's not built around Viking anything. The graphics look great. The world building looks great. The mechanisms in play, the play style. So I watched a video before going through all of the articles that were submitted. And I had already watched a video about Enshrouded, so when this was submitted, I said, yeah, that would be awesome. So Enshrouded is this really cool game. It's from the developer Keen Games, which is actually the people who created Portal Knights. And the two games cannot be further away from each other. It's amazing. How separate they are from each other. Pardon me, I have to grab a cord that's choking me because it fell off my connector. Yeah, never mind. It's
okay. We don't want to see that on camera.
Well, people like a train wreck, so maybe that's exactly what people. No, okay, I won't do it. Anyway, so the article is over at PC Gamer, so let's just head on over there. Christopher Livingston is the author. Enshrouded, they say, their deck statement says, Enshrouded is part Zelda, part Valheim, and has some seriously impressive base building tools. And in all honesty, I'm hoping that this game meets the hype that is just on the edge of surreal, because you can build structures like this. You can dig through the ground, just like in Valheim. Everything is... Oh, the only difference about this game, rather than Valheim, is that Valheim has a procedurally generated map with things placed in it, like force placed. This is the entire map is generated already. So my map matches your map, matches everybody else's map, but it is co-op up to 16 people, theoretically. But the level of complexity of this, in terms of detail, makes me think that this is not going to work out well. Because Valheim had a problem with digging too much, building too much. There was an upper limit. And I don't know if they ever resolved that upper limit. But there was only so much that you could build before it became a problem.
So can this be a contender for a forever game or no?
Say that again?
Can this be a contender for a forever game or no?
For my forever game, yeah. This definitely could be, as long as they keep on augmenting it, because I suspect the way that it's built, It has a fixed story. You go through the story. The objective is to remove the enshrouding, which is a fog, and the fog, I don't know what the reason for the fog is. There's a backstory for it, but there's a fog over the entire world, and you have to reveal the land as you walk around. There's mobs and stuff like that. And so everything is the same until you start building. And once you start building stuff, everything changes, because you can dig a hole through a mountain, that kind of a thing. You can build a castle like this. If you're looking at the podcast, or you're listening to this via a podcast, you're basically able to do any structure, and it doesn't seem forced. It doesn't seem kludgy and clunky. It looked streamlined and fast and efficient. It was great. Tull says that Trainwreck pretty much describes their day. Well, I hope that your day is improving. I hope that the show is helping improve your day. Everything should be nice and chill. It's post-work. We're all just hanging out, having a good chat about the news, and I cannot wait. I will for sure. Well, let me just say, if it meets the hype, even to 80% of what hype is built up inside me, I will have a community server for this, and then 16 people at a time can play the game. Doggone it. Sorry, I have this cable that keeps dropping off of its connector. Anyway, living the dream. This is how the sausage is made, folks. Professional streamer. Anyway, the base building system, it says here in the article, the base building system, as the most interested, building can be done in complete freeform, letting you shape and mold every last inch of your base, or you can use pre-made templates to build the walls, floors, structures, everything. It just seems like it's going to be crazy fun to play this game. And I've seen demos of it, but there is no public beta yet. Supposedly that's coming in a couple weeks. At any rate, go and put it in your wish list. It's Enshrouded. Tull says, Ark has kind of built me out. Did you mean burned you out? Or so Ark and Conan is a close runner-up. Just waiting to hear they fixed the base building from the latest DLC. And Conan, yeah. I dig Conan. Ark, I don't like the interface, so I'm waiting for Ark 2, and unfortunately Ark 2 just got pushed back. Oh yeah, gotcha. I missed that pun. Sorry about that, Tull. So there's videos in this link, so I would say go and check this link out. Okay. Now, let me throw these articles into chat. I'm really sorry. I got wrapped up in the soapboxing, and then I really should have been throwing these into the chat. Okay, let's keep on going through the news. And of course, AI, you can always jump in whenever you want. The next article is over in the continuity report. UK Actors Union Equity Readies guidance for SAG-AFTRA strike. UK Actors Union Equity is preparing advice for its members as SAG-AFTRA gets ready to strike on Thursday. That's today. I haven't heard of the strike actually kicking off, but I've been wrapped up with other things. Variety understands
that it's happened.
It has not?
It has happened.
Oh, it has. Okay. My understanding is that SAG-AFTRA actors that are involved in UK-based shows have announced that they're ready to leave. All of them are ready to leave, even the UK shows. And so Equity is trying to deal with that. So this is going to be interesting because it's going to shut down so many shows. Variety understands that the union, which has 50,000 members, has agreed a basic position with the U.S. counterpart. These rules will apply to UK productions, and the two groups are in the process of hammering out the specifics. So Equity and SAG-AFTRA, from my understanding, they're in lockstep. They're shoulder to shoulder, and they're going to stand by each other, because if one diminishes the other, then they're both diminished in the future. Minori Ravandran is the author of this article over at Variety.com. And it says Equity is asking members to check its website for the specific advice around 8 p.m. UK time on Thursday, which coincides with the SAG-AFTRA press conference in Los Angeles at noon Pacific time, which will officially announce the actors' strike. That's pretty much where I'll leave it, because I don't know exactly all of the shows that are going to be impacted, big, small, in between. But we know that. Why is SAG striking? Basically, equity and pay and certain benefits. And
I think there's also an AI component to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's at the bottom here.
Yeah. They want to be able to stop and control their likeness and stop AI from taking over the industry. Because what's ending up happening is AI is being trained on actors' work. It's every actor's work, because it's all owned by studios. And so they can basically create hybrids of their own actors in virtual space, an AI actor, but still have the personality of the actor that everybody is enthralled by, right? So if they create a high resolution, and I actually have done research on this and started the market analysis, but it was about 10 years ago, on creating virtual actors. This is a real threat to real actors. Sorry. The way that this is going to work is a studio can basically just create a 3D model of an actor, but not exactly the actor. And if you watch Black Mirror, the very first episode, I think it is, that kind of highlights how far this can go. We're getting to the point where my somewhat future-looking dystopian-esque show called Reality Hacker is becoming a real concern. It's no longer just talking about AI and fake reality, virtual reality, augmented reality. It's actually now the resolution is so high, and the way that voices are being generated. I have my voice synthesizer turned off right now, but I can change my voice into all kinds of things, including people, like other actors. So it's a real thing. It says here at the very bottom, the AI just said earlier, it's also seeking regulation on the use of artificial intelligence, which would require that actors be paid for any AI-generated use of their likeness, as well as limits on self-taped auditions and a host of other issues. Those other issues are primarily that AI is training on the past works. Satul says that the unequal pay is pretty high. I'm summarizing Tull. And if they didn't demand such high pay and special treatment, well, see, therein lies the rub, because studio CEOs are paying themselves $250 million. That's actually one that's it's demonstrably shown, but it's one of a plurality of them. I'm sure that we could put together a list of the executive suites and stockholders and stakeholders that are making a whole bunch of money, but these actors aren't getting everything that they deserve based on the fact that their work And honestly, they're not all making extraordinary. We hear about the extraordinary. We don't hear about the gap between the extremely popular and the not. So we hear about the really famous ones and they're making millions, but the rest of them are making 30,000 a year. Yet there's CEOs that are making hundreds of millions off of the plurality, not just the stars. And there's a ton of money. So I completely understand. Now, I can say that maybe, some of it is extraordinary, and might be asking for too much, but you shoot for the moon and you don't get if you don't ask, because they're not going to give without demanding it. So
I thought one of the most interesting stats in here was that the writers and actors haven't been on strike since 1960 at the same time.
Oh, interesting. Wow. Yeah, I missed that. And that's right there. But yeah, so the writers are striking right now. And that's where that number is born from. The fact that there's a CEO out there that is making $250 million while other actors are only making like 16,000, not actors, they're writers. But you wouldn't have it's basically sharing the wealth. It's that there's a lot of wealth that's concentrated into what I would call a more nepotistic kind of buddy thing, because the directors found an equitable agreement because they have a directors union, smaller clique. They had no problem with the bargaining power because you can't get a movie done without the directors, but you also can't get any movie done or show done or anything done without the writers and the actors. So why isn't more wealth shared amongst all of them? And really, I mean, we only know about the famous ones. We don't hear about the ones that are working, 40 hours a week and then have to go and work a McDonald's job on top of it because they're not making enough money. Or, working at Walmart or whatever. I mean, they have a sub job, another gig, a side gig. Yeah, I get it, Tull. Again, if you feel like you are a CEO or a leader of a company of some kind, you have the right to pay yourself what you want. That newbie actor may only be making $30K a year while the CEO is making millions off them, but the CEO founded a company and built it from the ground up. Yeah, that's not how these are. These are the boards that are keeping a CEO that's been hired, and it's never just that. There's a lot more elements to it. Unfortunately, it's very complex, and not. It doesn't just come down to the fact that they founded the company, but because there's so many moving parts, that wealth is being concentrated into a select few people from the plurality. And there isn't anybody that can sit there and just say, well, I'm going to go and do something else. It's not like that. Most people can't just get up and go and do something else. They've trained their entire life to reach a certain point and do a certain thing. And somebody else is dictating that they're only going to make 30 grand. Even though their work is translating into millions. So, yeah. Yeah, exactly. There's only so many Chris Pratts and Harrison Fords, right? But it's, that's who we hear
timely.
about. Yeah, that's very interesting. That's what we hear about, though. And not all of the rest of the wealth that's being... They're famous, they're high in everybody's minds, they're making a lot of money. But we'll revisit this because it's an ongoing thing, so we'll come back to it. So I wanted to get to this, and so we are somewhere around the halfway mark. Let me make sure that I've got all of the articles. in the chat. There you go. Yeah, I haven't seen. Satol says the interview Jack Carr does with Chris Pratt on his Danger Close podcast is phenomenal. I'll have to take a look at it or a listen. Okay, so this is the article that sparked the first article. And so the article is over in the Mobile channel. It's titled "The Next Bud Light." Ben and Jerry's sparks controversy with call to return stolen indigenous land. Quite an inflammatory statement, right? And it was just dropped out there like that, right? The United States was founded, and this is the tweet. The United States was founded on stolen indigenous land the 4th of July. This 4th of July, let's commit to returning it, the company tweeted. See, and the problem here is the company tweeted. You know, just go use your personal site. Don't leverage the entirety of the company, because there's a plurality of people in the company. And unless all of them, every last one of them, signs a document saying that they buy into it, that's why I hate the idea of Citizens United. So in a direct challenge to national symbols, Ben and Jerry singled out Mount Rushmore, stating, what is the meaning of Independence Day for those whose land this country stole, those who were murdered and forced? And my aggregator truncates the statement. So let's go over to the stockdork.com, which is a new entrant into our aggregation. Malik Greystone is the author of this. And the statement just kind of the cultural relativism is lost entirely on this, right? So before I get into it, Tull says, I would venture to say if anyone out there is wanting to know how to do a podcast interview, Danger Close is about as good as it gets. Jack is always super prepared and has a plan on how to guide the interview. It's phenomenal. Cool. Thanks, Tull. I just told whoever listens to the podcast, go check it out. So go check it out. And I will too. So this tweet by Ben and Jerry's corporate account, I understand that it's theirs. They are Ben and Jerry's is Ben and Jerry's, right? And so they can put out whatever message they want. But to say the United States was founded on stolen indigenous land the 4th of July, let's commit to returning it, is an odd mixture of ignoring all 250 years of the United States and the subtle nuance of agreements, treaties, outright purchases, etc. And then the time, this is temporal relativism as well. You cannot, in any way, shape, or form, pivot back 250 years of economic and social revolution that the country has performed, because the people who came here originally started to move west from a little tiny colony west. Why? Because the value of the land, its resources, etc., were not taken advantage of and may not have been taken advantage of then to now by the indigenous people. And there are plenty of locations on the planet that reflect as much. Now, you can say, well, there's been a whole lot of colonialism in all of these other regions. But again, we don't know what we don't know because we don't have a time machine. It isn't Marvel. We can't pretend to know that the exact same thing that happened in the United States would have happened if, Europeans didn't take the slow boat over. So Atul says there's a quote This is a quote, and I didn't read this yet. So if this quote is in here, the indigenous people didn't understand what the European conquerors were doing and didn't realize they were stealing their land. Oh, air quotes. Okay. So the counter argument would be that, right? But again, the modern society can't possibly pay a price for what has happened in the past, but what we can do is not allow it to move forward, not happen again, and embrace the diaspora, embrace the plurality, embrace the melting pot that is supposed to be America. But that's not what has happened historically, right? So during World War, Japanese were put in internment camps, Native Americans, and again, you have to refer to them as indigenous peoples or original peoples because they're not Native Americans. They weren't Americans. And over time, from the east to the west coast, following the mantra of from sea to shining sea, the manifest destiny was the nom de guerre, right? I like to joke about using that phrase, but that really was like a battle cry that everybody at the time believed that this land was meant for ... Tull says that's like saying that I am responsible for paying reparations for what my ancestors did long before I existed because they were following a cultural norm of the day. The quotes are for context focus. Right. Yeah. And that's how I feel about it too. But there are some things, right, that society should do, which is make sure that everybody has equity and inclusion and isn't set out marginalized simply because of their race. It should all be about knowledge.
Not marginalized, period.
Well, knowledge, skills, and abilities is a foundation for some people to say that it would be marginalizing someone. Well, no, not really, because you have the ability to develop the knowledge, skills, and abilities, and it doesn't really matter who or where you're from or whatever. The problem really starts to come into existence when somebody says, like Ben and Jerry's is saying, we need to give everything back. Well, it would have been fine if we would have given everything back 15 minutes after the very first taking.
Exactly. But how do we unwind it?
Correct. It's impossible.
It doesn't mean it should have happened, but it's very hard to reset everything.
Right.
It's impossible.
And so even in this article and in a previous article, like I said, ponder that original article. There was money given for Mount Rushmore into a fund for the Lakota Sioux. That's probably worth $2 billion according to that author. I don't know what it's worth. Which means that everybody that's in the Lakota Sioux tribe that has declared that they're Lakota Sioux should get about $20,000. Well, they haven't apparently touched that money because they want the land. But that's just not going to happen. It can't happen. So Tull says, so does that mean that B&J's expects the indigenous peoples to pay back what was used to purchase these lands with interest and inflation applied? That would be an interesting counter argument. Hey, well, look, we purchased it with this and it was valued at that rate at that time. So now converting for the modernity of today's economic systems, I think we're probably okay with just saying, here's an apartment in New York. The rent will be $4,500, that kind of a thing. I'm being facetious, but the reality is you cannot go back and change the past history. You cannot fix this other than by saying we won't let it happen again But that is also kind of marginalizing the idea that, well, you have everything, so ... Well, it wouldn't be worth what it's worth now if not for the events that have transpired since whatever has transpired. Because there's a lot of people that are saying, well, this state, this region, this area, that over there, it was never agreed upon, it wasn't really purchased, etc. And I even say there couldn't have been a real meeting of the minds. But to that end, I also say we cannot just give back everything that has transpired over its entire existence as a country. But one thing I can assure everybody of, we would not be where we are today if not for the actions that have taken place. Right? And arguably, because you can look around the world, other places didn't economically and socially reach the same point of the United States in such short time as the United States did. Tull says, sure, we can ban the books that are actual first-hand accounts and teach the 1619 Project as the only truth and rewrite the purchase of the land as the theft of the land, and we can absolutely rewrite this history. So Tull is describing a scorched earth policy, which is probably the only way that I think that you could get away with doing this. You literally have to wipe everybody with a counter perspective from the planet. And that's messy and expensive and all kinds of other things. But that really is the only way that you can... I
don't think those are the key objections.
Right. But that's the only way that you can get true unity. What society requires is that we all are part of the same social contract. We discuss things. We find a meeting of the minds. We have gives and takes. But what we don't do is have a fascist dictator that's telling us this is how it is. So in essence, we have... I understand, Tull. You're being sarcastic. But the only way that you're going to get, consensus, at least in a country that accepts conversation in the political system, the only way you're going to get consensus in something like that is to absolutely decimate the other side, whatever the other side is. And I just recently heard where was it? There was some show where I said, I was surprised that they said the same thing that I said, which is one person's terrorist is another person's freedom fighter. It just depends on which side of the fence you're on. And that's kind of what this is, right? Like, sure, what has transpired since the creation of the United States and before, right? Because there was a whole lot of stuff that transpired before the United States was formed. But once we became one country and there were pockets of people that were put into these encampments and then subsequently later on internment camps, and we gave it a name and all of that, like none of this should have happened. You would think that we would have accepted the people, but then we have, foreign countries that are, well, let's just say not friendly to the United States. And that's a lot founded on the fact that we became global police for an extended period of time. But this is a sincerely long form discussion. There's no way that the totality of the historical, I guess you can call it, taking of land over X period of years with all of the associated agreements and treaties and etc. that transpired over those years, is ever going to be quote unquote given back to the native people. Because just like today, unless everybody signs on the dotted line saying that, yeah, sure, go ahead, give it back, nobody should have the right to give it back. Just like even back then, if there was a meeting of the minds and the totality of the people said, yeah, sure, we'll give you the land for X amount of thing, whatever the thing might be, then it could be sold. But I sincerely doubt that any of that actually transpired there. I don't think that there was a true meeting of the minds, but I also am a realist and very pragmatic about these things. 250 years have gone by. The land isn't going back to the Aboriginal people because it has traded hands even within the tribal lands. So everything was in flux until the creation of a country state. And we stopped being tribal infighters physically, and we became social tribal infighters with in-groups and out-groups, and sometimes we have conflict and fists fly. But I would hope that we're not running around killing each other now because of somebody wanting, that pool of fish. I would think that we moved past it, but it seems like we're moving back towards it. Yeah, I don't know, Toll. I mean, both of those organizations actually see, because Toll says, I'd love to see some of these BLM and Antifa followers go to the Congo and fight to free the modern day slaves. There's your social injustice. I agree. However, BLM and what's being called Antifa, I don't know, man. I'm not quite sure what that is. Because being anti-fascist is essentially what people have fought against, right? Being anti-fascist is the embodiment of fighting fascism. I don't really think that Antifa as this nebulous cloud like group of people are the same as the ones that went and fought for freedom, right? On foreign shores. And it definitely hasn't come to our shores. But BLM, there is institutional racism, and they have absolutely a foundation that it's still systemic. I've been behind people who got pulled over because the person profiled them because I was the one that was speeding, but they pulled over the person in front of me. I was so, and that's just anecdotal. So I'm just saying that that actually happens. This Antifa thing, though, I would support anybody that would fight fascism. So, recognized by the DOD and DIA as a domestic terrorist group, Antifa. Yeah, I don't think it's a real organization, though. I think it's just people, a scattered band of people that identify as anti-fascist. But there is no unified message there, other than they're against fascism, which has been rearing its head. I mean, and we'll see how it ultimately plays out. And at the end of the day, Ben and Jerry's is sitting there using their platform, their millions, their corporation as a messenger to fight for what even this message here says, a controversial issue. It says here the company previously supported causes such as Black Lives Matters movement and LGBTQ plus rights, both of which, it's individuals that, how do I put this? Individuals are an issue. Large groups are a bigger issue. but you deal with the issue. You don't go, well, this entire group is bad, because Black Lives Matters as an organization isn't bad because they are fighting. It's a social platform. They are fighting for equity and inclusion, for Black lives, and trying to stop the systemic, I guess, abuse that takes place, because it definitely takes place. I mean, the stats don't lie about it. And LGBTQ plus is a very young organizational structure, and it has actually quite a few more letters in this. And in both of these cases, nobody's hurting anybody. They're just living their lives, and a lot of people should just let them live their lives. They're not coming for children. They're not coming to steal your car. It's individuals that might be, not an entire group of people. It's usually what happens is everything is, an individual is a bad actor, and then a large group of people is fine, and then what is the French term for it? An agent provocateur. There you go. An agent provocateur incites riot because they say or do something that causes somebody to act out because they've hit their threshold of frustration. And then it turns into violent or criminal or whatever. And this happens everywhere. And we've seen it time and time again. It's part of the social force that exists in society. Individuals do stupid things. Then there's a whole mass of people that everything is fine, everything is cool. And then somebody does something that triggers the mass of people. And it's a subset even within the mass. And when somebody tries to shut that down, it all becomes infighting, and it becomes chaotic. And then certain people are singled out again, usually from law enforcement. They're the agent provocateur, and they're the problem, and this is the problem. So, let's see. Toll says that BLM isn't really looking for equity, but they're looking for favoritism and prejudices against whites, and specifically white cops. But anyway, there might be people within it, but I don't see it that way. BLM canceled Terry Crews because he said that we need to sit down and have a discussion and recourse rather than rioting and destroying their own communities. I see cancellation as basically the social structure responding to what people are saying. And because we have platforms like this and a means of getting a broad message out all at once, it lacks context. And so some people lash out. And unfortunately, it's now all referred to as canceling, when normally what happens is Terry Crews wouldn't have had the massive platform to say something. But nowadays we have the internet. And so when the entire nation claps back, that's referred to as being canceled. But in reality, if you were to say something on your street that somebody didn't agree with, then the people on your street would say something to you, and maybe it wouldn't be as bad as this, but Terry Crews, for whatever reason, went from hero to zero with a lot of people, but there's still the plurality of people still like Terry Crews. I think that it was just a loud vocal few, and it's a shame that that's happened. But yeah, I think it's a loud vocal few. But that seems to be, the flavor of the day, is being loud and virulent and borderline violent is what gets you attention. And unfortunately, there's a group of people It may not be a lot, but they're definitely, what do you want to call it? They're a minority in the population, but they're loud because everybody likes to watch a train wreck. And I'm sorry to hear that, Crazy Cat Lady. Been there, and I'm really sorry that you're going through that. One of their cats they're losing one of their cats today.
I'm so sorry. That's very sad.
I'm interpreting it as what I think it is, but very unfortunate. I'm sorry. Yeah, the AI is sad now too. Okay, let's we'll revisit this because I think it's actually very important. Toll says that they're very frustrated because they're at least self-aware enough to know that they grew up in a very sheltered community, and because they're not so close to the subject, they look at it objectively rather than subjectively. Yes, when compared to the percentage of the population, there is a grossly large percentage of police-involved shooting with blacks, but that is also a disproportionately large number of that same community committing violent crimes. And that's largely based around the fact that there is lack of opportunity and inclusion and economically positive pathways to better yourself. So you have to, a large number of people, it's usually very dense populations. It's usually very few economic endeavors. And it's quite a more complex mechanism than just race. But that community, African Americans, basically continue to suffer their historical disposition. That's the only word that I could come up with. They ended up where we are because of the historical record, which is a failure of the governing peoples, not the police organizations. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of conditioning too. There's the mechanism is that everybody is treated as hostile, and that's not how it should be. And that's why there's training that takes place to try and de-escalate situations. And it's been acknowledged by police forces in many larger areas, but smaller communities still haven't really gotten the message.
But I
we'll
think we also see bad actors in all of these areas, and then they reflect on the larger community, even though that may not be reflective of the larger community's thoughts or actions.
So one last thing, and we'll continue on to the rest of the articles, but one last thing. The phrase is, and this is, everybody stops halfway through the phrase, one bad apple. Oh, it's just one bad apple. No, that's not the whole phrase. And that context really does mean something in society. Just like Antifa, just like BLM, police, military, everywhere. Every single cluster of people have it, okay? And this is the phrase, the whole phrase. Everybody needs to just chant that whole phrase. When they hear somebody say just the beginning, say the whole phrase. One bad apple spoils the bunch. So the bunch really does need to take care of that one bad apple, right? Not violent, talk to them, talk them off the ledge, cool their heads, whatever it is, but teach them a coping mechanism where they're not the bad apple, because the bad apple spoils the bunch. And that's what's happening in these groups, because power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And it's one bad apple corrupting the bunch. Thanks for hanging out, Toll. Really do appreciate it. Have a good night. Take care, Crazy Cat Lady. See you next time. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. We're going to keep on trucking through the news. The next article is over on the Mobile Channel. Prehistoric bone bed unveiled in Maryland's Dinosaur Park when Argentinian geologist Federico Alvarez Hazer, immigrated to Baltimore 1 year ago to live with his wife. He imagined that his days working on fossil dig sites close to home, as he had in South America's Patagonia region, were over. Well, he was abundantly wrong. He was shocked to discover Dinosaur Park, a 3.63 acre tract of land nestled behind a business park in Laurel, Maryland, that had been preserved following the discovery of several fossils more than 100 million years old. And he was even more surprised when he quickly found himself involved in a noteworthy discovery at the park, unveiled at a news conference Wednesday morning. It was Alvarez Hazer's hammer that struck a dinosaur's 3-foot-long shin bone buried in the dirt during an Earth Day dig event while he was helping to excavate a dinosaur vertebrae just inches away. So he says, "Oh shit, a bone."
I mean, is that what you'd
covered
expect
that up
from like a paleontologist or whatever?
Yeah, really, that's funny. I was working with my hammer and I broke a part of the tibia bone and I said, "Oh shit, a bone." Alvarez Hazer told the Baltimore Sun. "We start to dig and it was long. So that's pretty neat. And the article does go into greater detail, but I'm going to link it through ohmTown, and we're going to keep on hustling through the news. This is always a fun thing to read. This was actually one of my first loves. I wanted to go on archaeological digs and whatnot, and I don't think that I would have a problem with digging up a dinosaur bone, but I was told that I would probably end up digging up humans at some point. And for whatever reason, that just kind of pushed me in a different direction. Mainly tech and business and sociology.
I can't imagine why that would send you in another direction.
Well, I mean, they're old, ancient bones. It's not like they're going to be popping up and saying, "Hey, I was down there for a long time." All right, let's keep on hustling. If anybody is in chat and wants to continue to talk about a particular topic, feel free to throw it in chat and let us know. We tend to kind of give a little bit of context, anecdotal information, but we don't go too deep into any one topic at one time, like just now. The next article is over in the Hatch Ideas channel. Canadian West Coast port strike is over, but it will take weeks for supply chain to recover. We knew that this was coming. We knew that it was going to end at some point. How fast it ended, I had no idea. None. Zero. Because we watched this steam right into port, and then it just seemed to turn around and head right back out. But
yeah, I thought this might be months.
Yeah. The West Coast port strike is over, with ILWU Canada and port owners reaching a deal brokered by Canada's government, but supply chain delays will last weeks. This article is over in the CNBC. Lori Ann LaRocco is the author of this article, and it says the current West Coast port strike has significant implications for both the Canadian and U.S. economy and potential supply chain congestion from ocean cargo to inbound rails and sectors, from chemicals to oil, lumber, and construction materials. It goes far beyond that. That's fascinating that that's what they kind of mentioned. But, I mean, there's foodstuffs and clothing and
probably cars and
just all kinds of infrastructure stuff. And it's quite fascinating that that's what they focused on. But Canada's Labour Minister and Transport Minister announced on Twitter the end to the 13-day labor strike at the West Coast ports in Canada. This is not what's going on the West Coast of the United States, however, which is not right now a declared strike. It's a slowdown.
No. And I kind of wonder if that impacted this. Like, I'm wondering if the people negotiating this were looking and going, we're about to have 2 of these strikes, and even though they're different organizations, they're going to put a huge crimp in global trade.
Well, I can imagine Canada might be working with U.S. organizations to not be financially impacted by all of the business that's going to be going up into Canada. But this correction, the supply correction, is going to be, because what's going to end up happening is they're going to tariff the hell out of the Canadian goods that are going to get brought down into the United States. As far as I can interpret this, maybe I'm wrong, but I can see any supplies that go into a Canadian port so that they can be brought across the border, driving the cost up and delays. Because you can only drive one truck on one lane so fast through one port or one border check crossing terminal, you know. It doesn't just, oh, well, the gate's up, everybody go. Everybody gets checked out. It all gets processed. And now you have two of them. It's not just happening at the port, but it's happening at the booth, the toll booth on the way through into the United States. It says while the production ramp down at the ports was seen immediately, the congestion as a result of the 13-day strike could have long-lasting effect on the ports. The ramping back up takes weeks before efficiencies will be regained. By combing the wait time of vessels getting into port and unloaded and containers loaded onto rails, combined with delays, can extend from a month to at least 2 months for a U.S. arrival. So there we go. And that's on rail. Just trucks and other delivery. I don't know. I think that we're looking at 3 months, 4 months before we're back in, and that's Canadian. We're not talking about the U.S. port because there's still delays at the U.S. ports. So the port strike has already damaged the U.S. supply chain. In data released Wednesday, the American Association of Railroads reported year-over-year intermodal Canadian rail was down almost 50% last week as a result of the strike, and the top sectors impacted included forest products such as lumber and wood. Not quite the same. Oil and petroleum products, non-metallic minerals such as crushed stone, sandstone, clay and glass products and chemicals, and products that go into paints, coatings, etc. This is going to be a hot mess. Just in time for eggs to be cheaper.
I know, I thought they were lowering.
They are. We'll end up talking about it. Let's go. So the next article is over in the Mobile channel. TikTok plastic surgeon who live streamed procedures loses license. This is kind of the no shit news at 10:30. Catherine Roxanne Graw, known as on TikTok as Dr. Roxy, is banned from practicing in Ohio after the medical board said she harmed patients while live streaming. The article is over at the Washington Post. Timothy Bella is the author. All right. Known to our online followers and patients as Dr. Roxy, appears before our Ohio Medical Board hearing Wednesday. I don't know. I guess HIPAA doesn't really matter. Right? Like, she can stream surgeries?
I don't know how she could. Maybe she got the patient's consent.
Authorities determined that she injured patients while live streaming their procedures to hundreds of thousands of viewers. The State Medical Board of Ohio on Wednesday permanently revoked the medical license of Catherine Roxanne Graw and fined her $4,500 based on her failure to meet standard of care. The board found that while Graw was performing surgery, she live streamed parts of her patients' procedures on TikTok, spoke into a camera, and answered viewer questions from some of her more than 825,000 followers. Okay, well, that's where
wait
dipshit.
A second. People are not able to multitask.
Hey, wait.
She didn't get the message.
Yeah, only computers can multitask. At least 3 patients reported having severe complications, infections, a perforated intestine, and a loss of brain function. Jeez. And needing medical care after Graw operated on them at Roxy Plastic Surgery, her practice in Powell, Ohio, according to the board. Oh my God. She pleaded that they not pleaded that they not take her license and said that I'll never live stream a surgery again. But But apparently that didn't quite work out. The vice president of the medical board said Wednesday, I strongly recommend that there never be a Dr. Roxy or patient 1, 2, or 3 and protect the people of the state of Ohio from this reckless physician. Oh, oh man. Yeah, she maintained.
Look how many she live streamed.
Yeah. She live streamed to anywhere between 100 and 500,000 TikTok users per video and said that it did not affect the procedures. Bra is facing lawsuits from the 3 patients who needed care after performed surgery on them. Also accused the medical board of bullying her during her suspension and this week's hearing.
And I misread that. I thought that meant she had live streamed that many times, but I guess that's how many views she had.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah. I don't know how many people would have been watching her directly, but they said tens of thousands, I think.
100,000.
Hundreds of thousands.
I think.
Yeah. Maybe there are that many people that would sit there and watch a plastic surgery. I'm sure there are. I can guarantee you there are. I mean, there's billions of people on the planet, for crying out loud.
But who wants to watch a surgery take place?
Some people are really.
I wouldn't think.
Some people are really fascinated. Her schedule was booked with surgeries over the next 2 years, she said, a lineup that included about 80 to 100 breast augmentations a month and thousands of Brazilian butt lifts annually. Oh my God. The breast augmentation at Roxy Plastic Surgery costs $6,600, while surgeries for a mommy makeover, usually a combination of a bunch of stuff, can range from $15,000 to $20,000. I want to get a mommy makeover. The dead air is just hilarious.
That seems like that relates to a topic that was in another article that I'm not going to bring up.
Yeah. We're actually going to talk about. I don't think that this next article is this type of breast augmentation, but let's take a look at it. This one was in ohmTown Daily. A woman caught trying to smuggle 5 live snakes in her bra. That's why this one is titled, excuse me, ma'am, your bra is hissing. I wouldn't even touch them, never mind hide them in my bra, one user wrote, while another added, I won't even look at snakes on my phone. This is an article that's over at Newsweek, and Pandora Dewan is the author. Okay, wait. Is this video actually that?
No.
Snakes on a plane. Officer sees. Oh, okay. God, can you imagine having those?
No.
Those are like quadruple F cup right there, man. Wow. Anyway, hidden in the woman's bra were 5 pet corn snakes wrapped in stockings against her chest. The incident took place at Fujian, I guess, or Fujian port in the city of Shenzhen. Shenzhen. That's an easy one because there's a lot of technology there. In late June, news of the smuggling was shared by China Customs to its WeChat account on July 8th. Officials initially stopped the woman due to her weird body shape and submitted her to a full body inspection, according to Hong Kong-based English language newspaper, the South China Morning Post. Oh, wow. There's like a snake right there. In that little... They have a picture where it's blurred out her cleavage, but you can actually see where, like, these nylons are holding what amounts to corn snakes. Apparently 5 of them. Are you assuming the shape of my boobs? Excuse me, ma'am. Is that a corn snake in your bra? That's amazing. That's hysterical. Oh, wow. Well, I only see 4 of them. It says photo of 5 corn snakes wrapped in stockings. There's a picture of them. They were between 20.
The 5th was in the other picture.
Yeah, I don't know where that other one was. Hello, Z. Don't boo me. Come on. That was an awesome joke. Man, my biting humor. Can you imagine having a snake between 24 and 72 inches long wrapped around your boobs? Yeah, all hiss, no bite.
This is probably the craziest smuggling thing we've seen. We've seen a lot of weird smuggling incidents.
Well, apparently it's happened in the past, so I don't know. People are slithering by. That one's a horrible joke. I'm going to keep going. The next article is over in ohmTown Daily as well, over at ohmTown.com. Go check it out. New features, new functions. It's always awesome. Always some news. All the news, none of the noise. I mean, I'm just throwing all of it out there. Your breakfast just got a lot cheaper with prices of eggs and bacon plunging 27% amid cooling U.S. inflation. Yeah, we'll see. I haven't looked at the producer price index or the consumer price index since I think the report was supposed to come out yesterday. Breakfast just got way cheaper for Americans thanks to tumbling eggs and bacon prices. So they might be hinting that the inflation issue, they've cracked the inflation issue. The cost of a dozen eggs and a pound of bacon has plunged 27% to $8.44 from a peak hit in January, but they didn't break it out in this little snippet. So if eggs are still over $4.50, I still think that it's too much, but let's go take a look. Markets Insider is where that's sourced from, and they're a little subsection of businessinsider.com. Let's scroll down and see. So, oh, there it is, right? Meanwhile, the average price of a dozen eggs has fallen to $2.22, marking a 54% plunge from a peak of $4.82 reached in January. The cost for the same egg, the same had surged 60% in 2022. I was at a farmer's market, and their dozen eggs was $4.50. Yeah, I left
very
those
high, particularly for direct from the source.
Yeah, and they're not like massive eggs either. I mean, they were little tiny eggs. It's kind of like, you know, those chocolate eggs, they used to be like
Cadbury.
that big. Yeah, Cadbury eggs, and now they're like that big and cost more, and they're tiny, right? That's kind of how this felt when I was looking at it. I'm like, yeah, I'm not buying those. And I normally buy from the farmer's market, but under my breath, I mumbled, "You're out of your freaking mind." The Federal Reserve interest rate increases, which boosted benchmark borrowing costs by 500 basis points since early 2022, has helped bring down prices of some food items. But still, the people that are paying the most are the people that can't afford to pay the most, which are the people that have not gotten raises and not been able to benefit from the pandemic. So this is good. But y'all still can't get a damn house, and you're paying a lease for an apartment that's still going up because the people know that they can get more money from you because you can't buy a house. It's complex. I'm waiting for Z to say, "Eat the rich."
I mean, the prices went up so high. It's definitely good that they're going in this direction, but I know they haven't hit where they were before.
Yeah.
Like, they still need to keep going lower.
Yeah. And, you know, rightly so. I was told, and I had already read this anyway, that an outbreak of bird flu caused basically a massive culling. And Nosy, you know you can't correct anything when you say it in chat. This is just like Dunkstar's place. Eat the rish. That's right. R-I-S-H. It's immortalized, Z. Thank you. Thank you so much. I needed that, actually. We had a really involved chat earlier. And it was an emotional roller coaster for everybody involved, but it was very refreshing to have a point counterpoint perspective about things. And that's what I'm here for, to have a really good time with a conversation about stuff that's important. So let's keep on hustling. We only have 2 more articles. I've been actually watching videos about this taking place as we speak. It's in the ohmTown Daily channel over on ohmTown. Remote work could wipe out $800 billion from office buildings value by 2030, with San Francisco facing a dire outlook, according to McKinsey. McKinsey surveyed 13,000 office workers around the world for a model to predict real estate demand. It estimated that $800 billion worth of real estate value will be wiped out from 9 major cities, and San Francisco faces a dire outlook with a potential 38% fall in demand in a severe scenario. That severe scenario is basically remote work. So if everybody works from home, which I am a massive proponent of, because if I don't need to travel for 2 hours to get into an office in each direction, I'm not getting paid for it. It's not part of my work product. So obviously it's all on my dime. My work-life balance is getting shat upon. So why not work from home? If I can, why not allow it? Well, Pete Syme, I think their name is, works over at businessinsider.com, put this article together. I've been watching people tour San Francisco on YouTube, videos here and there. I've actually went looking for it, but I found one. I can't remember their name. I'm sorry. I'll find it, and when we have another article about this, I'll bring it up. But they were touring the major tourist and shopping hub in San Francisco, and I can't remember. It's the Trolley Street, and it is a ghost town. The only people that are there actually have guards standing on the doorstep, because troublemakers are going to come in and rob the place or abuse customers or whatever. And at one point, the guy's walking down the street, and there is a guy that's just bombed out of his mind. They call them zombies because the drug that they take turns them into just a standing there zombie. And that's in the middle of the day in downtown San Francisco. The rest of the main street shops, nothing. It's actually for rent, for lease, for sale.
That's astonishing. I mean, I think that city was doing pretty well, say 5 or 10 years ago. So it's done like a complete 360.
All because of the pandemic and work from home. And the fact that you can buy everything online.
And you can't afford to buy any real estate there.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think you were talking about Market Street. That's their main street where transit runs.
It sounds about right. So the consulting giant found that in most of these cities, demand in 2030 will still be lower than it was in 2019 before the pandemic. The $800 billion figure is based on an average 26% decline in the value of the city's office space across that time period. Yeah. The only way that the value is going to return is if everybody is forced back into the office. They're not going to be, there's no other way to return people to that commercial district and to an area to spend, except for mandated, required, if you're going to work here, your butt's in our seat, in our building. And if they do that, there might be a competitor that says, hey, if you work for me, I'll let you work from home. And that work-life balance is definitely worth not having, I'll take a pay cut if I don't have to come in. But it better be founded on the fact that I'm also doing less work, like my responsibility has to be lighter if I'm going to take a pay cut. You can't base it entirely on the fact that I'm sitting at home. I'm still doing the work product. Kiss my shiny metal ass. Anyway, the report says that sparked by a prevalence of commuters, high house prices, and the idea that tech workers are more inclined to adopt remote work technology, which is everything that I just got done saying. Although it says here at the very bottom of the article, actually there might be a little bit more, but one of the statements is downtown San Francisco is already proving unpopular with the likes of Elon Musk, while a lawsuit says his attorney justified Twitter not paying rent on its headquarters because the city is a shithole. This is an attorney that said that.
It's interesting since I'm sure they signed a contract to pay the rent.
Yeah, huh.
And the attorney should probably understand that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't think that it was... I don't think anybody complained about the headquarters. But hey, you know, if nobody's showing up, then... Oh, and you have to pay people. That's probably what turned it into a shithole. You're not paying people enough to show up. Okay, last article for the day. This last article is in the Mobile Channel. Hidden details of Egyptian paintings revealed by chemical imaging. Portable chemical imaging technology can reveal hidden details in ancient Egyptian paintings, according to a study published July 12th, 2023 in the open access journal PLOS 1 by Philippe Martinez of Sorbonne University, France, in collaboration with colleagues at the University of Liège, Belgium. So this is really cool. I've actually seen not exactly this, but something else about this. Ancient Egyptian paintings are commonly thought to be the result of highly formalized workflows that produced skilled works of art. However, most studies of these paintings and the process that created them take place in museums or laboratories. So the similar studies that I have seen weren't on Egyptian paintings in situ, because they weren't done on canvas. They were done on stone or plaster. I've seen variable light and chemical analysis of pictures done, and they do a similar thing to this, but on canvas and other materials. This is the first time that I've seen something on stone. So I'll do that first paragraph there. In this study, Martinez and colleagues used portable devices to perform chemical imaging on paintings in their original context, allowing for analysis of paint composition and layering, and for the identification of alterations made in ancient paintings. I don't know how they get deeper than the initial layer, and I haven't read all of this article, but 2 paintings were analyzed in detail, both located in tomb chapels in the, I think it's Theban, necropolis near the River Nile, dating to the Ramesside period. It may be Ramesside period, but I have never heard this or seen this or heard it pronounced, so sorry about that. On the first painting, researchers were able to identify alterations made to the position of the figure's arm, though the reason for this relatively small change is uncertain. On the second painting, analysis uncovered numerous adjustments to the crown and other royal items depicted on the portrait of Ramses II, a series of changes that most likely relate to some change in symbolic meaning over time. So this is what I want to show you, really. For those of you who are listening to this via the podcast, basically they did different levels of chemical analysis of the artwork. It was paint on plaster and or stone. And so they have the outline of the current picture, and then different chemical analyses was done of the art that was there. Now the visible one is right here at the far right, and using different chemical analysis methods, it shows slightly different actual art pieces. So although we have historically believed that this is how it was and this is how it always was, it actually has changed over time. pretty interesting. They didn't have canvas, right? They weren't painting on canvases. Or I should say,
That's
nothing
true.
survived the period of time between then and now as a work on canvas. At least nothing that I know of. And a lot of stuff gets reused. So using this methodology, they may be able to find a tomb that has a completely different style of art or person underneath the layer that is actually in existence today, which is what happens with paintings on canvas or wood blocks and stuff like that, that we use variable light to look past, even with doing like forensic analysis of documents and art to see if it's a forgery. The old art is either left in place and painted over, and even though it's a modern forgery, it has an antique backing, so everybody goes, well, it has the antique canvas, the original canvas, so you have to do variable light to see what was underneath it, and you have to do chemical analysis of the modern pigments. But really significant forgeries can have the modern equivalent of an ancient technique or old technique, and so it can come across as very real, very original, and not a fraud. Well, in this case, the significance of those pieces changed, and so they edited the artwork. I think it's kind of neat. And this is the actual situation where they're doing the measurements. I think it's kind of neat.
It's very cool.
Yeah. So applying all of this modern technology to the ancient Egyptian paintings, the authors add that these discoveries clearly call for a systematized and closer inspection of paintings in Egypt using physiochemical characterization. I agree. Like, I'm more interested in the chronological order of these. Like, I want to know the dates and that these were actually put, like radiocarbon dating. I want to know when they were actually painted, as opposed to the construction of the tomb. At any rate, what do you think? Anybody out there have an opinion on something like this? Do you think it matters knowing that, like going back in time and looking at a painting to see what the significance is? Like, why would they change? Does it matter that they changed, the style of the adornment?
I mean, it could be important for art purposes or cultural purposes, archaeological. Do we learn something about the culture from looking at it? Do we learn something about art styles?
Maybe the
And
original painting was a
I
lizard
think it's
person.
important. But it could just be interesting for the sake of the art, even not even the historical piece of it.
Yeah. Z says that they think it's neat and they're not sure that it matters to someone. I think it matters to the grant holder. This is almost entirely funded by a grant. I can almost guarantee it. What I really like about this, though, is that it puts that technology to use in a unique way that tests that technology, and maybe they can use it for other things beyond this one use. And this is the cutting edge use of it to show that it's feasible, and then they put it into action. I knew somebody that invented something new, and it's actually something that can't be talked about other than in general terms. But it was this piece of technology that had to be used to really test it. It had to be used in a very hostile situation. So they dropped it in the ocean to test it in the real world. And apparently it came back working flawlessly. So this person became very rich really, really quick because of grants, funding, spun up a business and everything off of it. Pretty spectacular. Okay, well, with all that in mind, I'll let you know if you have an idea about something. Now's the time to do something with it. Don't let it linger. I have a lot of ideas that I've let linger, and every day I see something new and fascinating come across ohmTown.com, and it just makes me it motivates me to bring these things to market. So at the end of every show, I'm ready to do something. Then I get pulled away by ohmTown and other things. Okay, so at the end of every show, we always renew that or refresh that front page, bring you back to the welcome sign. Is there anything interesting on the front page right off the bat that you like the idea? Night flying helicopters prepare for battle wildfire in California. Interesting. I want to start watching that. I'm sorry?
I was just looking at the articles.
Bruce Willis, close call. Really? Wow. Oh, I had no idea he had a close call on the first day of Die Hard filming. Talk about getting in the Wayback Machine. Wow.
Yeah, I wonder why that's just getting reported now.
I don't know. This is something that we talked about already.
Yes.
I don't know.
Lego.
I think we're gonna. Huh?
Oh, Lego isn't just for kids.
Okay. Well, we can throw that in the. If the AI likes it, then I know that it's going to be fun. Well, if anybody out there likes any of the articles that they see over on ohmTown.com, be sure to send me an email. Either send it to mayor@ohmTown.com, or you can send me a message via Twitch or even YouTube. But get in touch with me any way that you have availed yourself of. So I'll get it. I'll even if it's a source that's from somewhere else, let me know that article and I will do what's necessary. I evaluate all of the articles, submission or no, and if the source adds to ohmTown in some way, either pro or con, a particular perspective, I will include it in the aggregation. As long as it has additional value. And then we talk about it. And we actually did that. I've received other submissions in the past, but today one article in particular spurred me into action on 2 different articles on the same subject. So quite a fascinating discussion. So at least I think so. Oh, Special Ops Lioness premiere canceled in response to the SAG-AFTRA strike. Man, this is going to be an interesting day tomorrow.
I hope everybody has a lot of TV saved up, because we're not going to see much of it coming.
Yeah, I think I'm going to end up going into the Wayback Machine and watching. I want to see all of the What We Do in the Dark. In the shadows, sorry, What We Do in the Shadows. This is supposed to be a fun show. So anyway, that's it for today, folks. We are brushing up against 2 hours for today's show, all because of my soapboxing. I know. But this is why you all pay the big bucks, right? To hang out and listen to the podcast. Take care, Z. I already said goodnight to others that were in chat, and thanks for hanging out. Appreciate it. I'll see you later. That said, we are done. Done. I am Mayor Watt. That is ohmTown.com. Those lights are about to turn off, and the AI is about to say bye-bye.
Good night, ohmTown citizens. We will see you tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern.
True.